In the late 1800s, deep in the Arizona desert, men were sent to a prison many believed was worse than death. Welcome to the Yuma Territorial Prison, a place many referred to as the Hell Hole. Here, summer temperatures climbed well above 100 degrees. The sun baked the stone walls day after day, while prisoners labored beneath it. Inside these cells were murderers, thieves, and some of the most dangerous men in the American Southwest. But the prison also catered to those guilty of much lesser crimes too. Some prisoners lost their minds there, others never made it out alive. Today, the prison stands silent above the city of Yuma, but behind these crumbling walls lies a story far more complicated than the legends would have you believe. Today, I am hanging out amongst Yuma's dead. Out of the over 3,000 people who were held captive at what was known as the Hell Hole, the Yuma Territorial Prison, 111 met their end and are currently here under these rock markers. Most of them died of things like disease, but there's even reports of death by rattlesnake bite amongst these 111 buried here. And these poor souls met their end while experiencing one of the most hellish forms of captivity one could ever go through. I wanted to start this on a somber note on my now second visit to the Yuma Territorial Prison, where I've come back so we can do a retelling of the history here and re-experience some of the horror that you're gonna find up there on the hill behind those stone walls. This is frontier justice at its most extreme, I would say.
The desert don't lie. You can bury a man out here, but the wind will still whisper what he did. I remember the first time I laid eyes on that prison. I heard of this place opening for business just a few years back, and the stories, oh, the stories, I wish I never heard them. I'm really not a bad guy, for real, not like some of the devils in there. Sure, I hit some hard times and had to do what I had to do to get by, but the folks of the territory didn't take kindly to my little thievery. But I done what I done, and they brought me here. As we passed through that main gate, I admit, my eyes was looking for ways I could bust out, but as soon as I saw the tall walls and that guard tower, things was looking bleak. Even if I could get over that without getting shot down, I'd have to get across the rivers below, which in my day was a much different beast than what folks see today. Men drowned there, and if the quicksand or snakes didn't get me, I'd have endless miles of hot, dry desert to go. No water, no nothing. No, sir, this wasn't going to be good.
Gold fever struck the U.S. in 1849, and ever since, throngs of people headed west looking to strike it rich. Yuma in the territory of Arizona was no exception. As mining and prosperity grew in the territory, so did the lawbreakers. To deal with the increasing crime in Old West Yuma, a new prison was constructed and opened in 1876. The Yuma Territorial Prison, the Hell Hole. In little time, many feared this prison. One person said the jail had insufferable heat that made the place an inferno. Tuberculosis was rampant and put many into an early grave. Conditions were known to be very harsh, where a ball and chain was standard punishment. And that's just getting us started.
All right, let's go out to the main prison here. And if we could go back in time to just the right time, you'd probably have several inmates standing here saying whatever it is they were saying back then.
Life on the inside was hard. We'd spend the days working in quarries, sometimes farming, or some other kind of hard work, with only the reward of coming back to a crowded cage at the end of the day. You'd often have up to 6 men in one of them cells. I ain't kidding neither. And on one of those hottest of Arizona summers, it never cools off at night. It was a prime misery of my life. Chances are good you'll get locked in that cell with a real hard case, someone that adds to your misery. And there's definitely a few bad apples around here you ought be wary of. There's Buckskin Frank Leslie. He's a real genuine cold killer. He got life here for killing his girlfriend and shooting a man, but he's done plenty of killing before. He killed Billy Claiborne in Tombstone. Some even say he's the one killed Johnny Ringo, even though they said Johnny killed himself. There's also others from Tombstone in here too. Pete Spence got some time here for pistol whipping a man so bad it killed him. They even said he had a hand in Morgan Earp's assassination. And then you just got the ones you don't want to make eye contact with. But for all the cruel ones, there's some decent folk in here too. Even some ladies. There's Elfrida Mercer, thrown in here for a few months for adultery. And then there's Pearl Hart. She's a rambunctious one, and a bit of a legend in these parts. She committed one of the last stagecoach robberies in the United States. In here you'll find all manner of criminal, but we all got one thing in common. We all gotta survive in this God-forsaken place.
So this shows a typical cell here in the prison, and you can see, I think they'd be able to fit about 6 people on these bunks. These metal bunks came into play in 1901 and replaced wooden bunks because of bed bugs. I don't know if that would make it any better though. So I've been in a couple cells already. And mind you, it's April, so it's not the hottest time of the year here in Arizona, and it's early in the morning. You would think these cells would be nice and cool, you know, inside the stone and comfortable and it's in the shade, but for whatever reason, they are not. They are warm in here. I've been in this one now and a couple others I poked into, and it's just, you know, weird. Usually like spaces like this would be cooler, but I don't know what it is, but it's not comfortable and it's not even that hot out there yet.
By this point, most of you see how tough it was doing time in a place like Yuma Territorial Prison. Being crammed in a tiny cell in the Arizona heat with up to 6 people per cell, hard labor during the day in the desert sun, all in the context of 1800s era justice, it would break most of our modern sensibilities. So you might be confused when I say, but wait, it gets worse. No matter how tough things get in jail, there are those who still test limits and cause problems, those who need to be isolated from the rest of the population. Even modern jails have isolation wings, but at the Territorial Prison, they have something that makes modern isolation look like luxury. Today you can visit the prison's isolation room, known as the Dark Cell, also known as the Snake Den. On its own, it's bad enough, but like any Old West attraction, it's now steeped in legend, haunted history, and stories that make some folks' skin wriggle, some likely embellishments. More on that in a bit, but let's first hear what our resident inmate thinks of it, complete with all the grisly detail.
Shortly after my introduction to life at the prison, I heard other inmates talking about something called the Snake Den. A deep, dark cell where they put those who needed further discipline. Now, I never done anything to warrant tossing me in there, but the stories were good enough to make most men behave. For those who like to sass the guards, start fights with others or worse, they were taken to this cell, usually for just a couple days, as that's all that was needed. There was this one feller one time who crossed the line one too many times that got put in there for a couple months. He went in full of bluster and came out broken and deflated. Nobody beat the Snake Den, ever. They say it's black as pitch inside there once they close the door. The guards would put men inside of an iron cage in that room and fasten their shackles to the floor to let them cool their heads. Sometimes there might even be several inmates crowded inside at once. You could hear some whimper from time to time, and for most, once was enough. But if that weren't bad enough, sometimes the guards liked to have a bit of sport with those trapped inside. On the ceiling of this room was a small hole where sometimes the only visible light would shine through. They'd toss down snakes, scorpions, and other creatures right down onto the men laying in the darkness, all while laughing and hooting and hollering. Those unfortunate to be inside could barely see a thing all the while, and even if they could, there was nary a thing that they could do about it.
This thing always gives me the heebie-jeebies in here, because there were actually people in this thing. I know fans of paranormal history would also cite that this is likely a very haunted space, if you're a believer in that. But essentially, this is where they would bring men in, chain them, fasten chains to them through those rings on the ground, and put them into this cage that was right underneath this hole. And they could shut that door and put somebody in complete darkness, save for maybe a dim light coming from the hole above. So I guess if you really just needed to cool off, maybe you could misbehave just enough so you weren't put in here too long and then get out of the heat.
We cover just a portion of Yuma Territorial Prison's story, and mainly the gritty old West bits. There's much more history left to uncover. We left a lot of meat on the bone. So we hope you too can someday visit this historic treasure and learn more about this brutal time capsule. If you like this presentation, consider visiting our Buy Me a Coffee site and contribute to help fuel future episodes just like this one. Link in description. And please drop us a comment and let us know how you like this one.
Well, folks, there you have it, another tour of the Yuma Territorial Prison. It's as brutal the second time as the first, and I hope we entertained you, informed you, told the story properly, and yeah, I don't know what else to say about this one. See you next time.
And remember, friends, it don't pay to commit crime.